Three keys for the Badgers this upcoming weekend. Let's start with this one. Throw the damn ball.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Really do appreciate you tuning in. Today's episode, we are talking three keys to this game: offensive key, defensive key, and then three key players that you want to look out for that are going to make a big difference come tomorrow with this Middle Tennessee game. Let's get into it. Three keys to the game, three things that I think are interesting to me, that are important to the game, and I let off with it: throw the damn ball. And this might sound counterintuitive. Backup quarterback, some struggles on the offensive line, should run the ball. Middle Tennessee State, you should be able to run the ball 40 times this game. Dylan Jones, Darian Dupree, Cade Yakimelli, I think you could do that. I think you could do that and just run all over them and throw the ball 12 times. And what would that do? Well, obviously, you get the win, but I think this is a game where you have to. I think Daniel Neal might be the quarterback for a little while here. You're not going to just be able to run the ball against Alabama. You're not just even against the Maryland. Certainly not in Michigan. You're not just going to be able to run the ball. So I think this is a great opportunity to let the passing game air it out a little bit in a situation that, listen, I'm not saying throw the ball 50 times, but this is a situation where you can let Daniel Neal throw the ball, put him in some situations, let him make some plays, hopefully build some confidence. And if he can't do it against Middle Tennessee State, then I don't know what we're doing here anyway. But let him build some confidence. Let him take some deep shots. Do not just turn this into, for better and worse, a Paul Chryst game plan where, if you remember some of the games against non-conference opponents that we were much better than, Brett Bielema did it too. Sometimes we would run for 350 yards and it was awesome. But the passing game never got any reps. And then you need them in a game later in the year. And it just felt like you could have given that unit more reps early in the season. So I think with an offensive line that's a little in flux, that struggled a little bit in pass protection, with a new quarterback that I think needs some reps, with the passing game that didn't get fully on track last week, I think this is an important game. I think you could just run it all game probably if you wanted to and be fine. But I think this is an important game to give Daniel Neal confidence, to give him reps, to let him and Vinny Anthony work on some chemistry, to let the receivers work on some chemistry, to let the coaching staff, Coach Guyton, the quarterback's coach, get into a rhythm, and Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator, get into a rhythm with what works for Daniel Neal, because you're not just going to be able to run the ball up and down the field against Alabama. So this is partially to get ready for going down to Bryant-Denny. And that's an Alabama team that doesn't look as good as it did certainly the last several years. So let's go down there and let's throw a punch. But to do that, you have to let Daniel Neal throw the ball this week. You have to let the passing game get on track potentially. And again, I think you could absolutely run the ball first, second, third down for probably a chunk of this game and be just fine. But I don't think that really helps you big picture. It helps you on Saturday in Camp Randall. I think we have to let the passing game get some rhythm tomorrow. To me, that's a big key. I know Rajiv and Justin talked about it as well, and they said, I think they said the number was 25. I don't know if it's 25, but I want to see at least 20. I don't want to see 15 passing attempts. I think you need to let him throw the ball. You need to let the coaches figure out what works. You need to get the receivers on track. You need to take a couple deep shots. You need to get Vinny Anthony going and Jaden Ballard and Tretch. So I think that's number one for me. Throw the ball. Certainly run it too. Don't get me wrong. Dylan Jones is going to be featured in this game, but it can't just be a running game. Key number two for me. Find the game plan on offensive line. Again, I don't think this is a game where you come out of it saying offensive line's fixed, even if you look really well, because I talked about it on a previous show, so I'm not going to belabor it. Middle Tennessee State's shouldn't be really good. So I don't think you come out of this saying it's fixed. But I think ideally what you come out of this game with is the game plan going forward. If you can solidify that, I think that's a success for this week. And whatever that game plan is, right? Is it Malman at left tackle? Does he stay at right tackle? Are they kicking Mandel out? Are they kicking Brunner out? Maybe putting Coverly somewhere, Kadenko somewhere? Again, we talked through like every scenario that's here. So I'm not going to go back down every one of those rabbit holes. I have some I prefer, others have others they prefer. Coming out of tomorrow, coming out of the game on Saturday, I think you have to have the game plan in place. This is the roadmap that we want to go forward. This is what we think we're doing going into Alabama. What I would think would be a failure after tomorrow's game is if you come out of that game and you still aren't sure where you're going to line people up. So I think the first one is throw the ball, let Daniel Neal get some confidence, some rhythm. And then the second one is you got to have some confidence that you've at least reshuffled the deck in a way that makes the most sense going forward. And then we'll see if it works. Again, I'm not going to come out of this game. If they win 55-3, I'm not going to come out of this saying everything's solved. I would feel good about that. It'd be a lot better than winning or, God forbid, losing the game. But I think if they come out of this with the idea of who they want where, and then you have another week of practice before Bama, then you have a week of practice before Maryland, then you have the bye week. Potentially, you have a lot of these places pretty comfortable come Michigan then. So I think those are the first two keys, right? Passing game, and then figure out and settle on what you want to do at the offensive line. And here's my third key. Dominate. That I know that sounds ridiculous, but I want to see the depth in there in the fourth quarter if possible. The Badgers need one of those games where they really, frankly, look like the much better team, and this should be it. This should be that game, even with the backup quarterback. The way Middle Tennessee State looked week one, I had the podcast from the Blue Raiders on, and they were talking about Middle Tennessee State. They're not that confident. That team looked pretty bad. They got beat by a Division II FCS program pretty easily. This should be a game where your depth gets some reps so they start to develop, where you keep people pretty fresh and rested for that week 3 game against Bama coming up. So keys to the game: throw the ball, get the passing game going, figure out the offensive line, just at least in terms of what's going to go where, and then play well enough that in the third quarter, this is a game that you're seeing maybe Hunter Simmons get a couple reps, maybe Emmett Bork, maybe some of those backup defensive linemen and Thomas Heiberger's in there, because that does two things. And I think they're two really important things, maybe even three. I think it does three things. The first is it gives the team some confidence. You feel pretty good about yourself. The last thing you want to have happen is obviously a loss, but I don't think they're going to lose this game, but a close game. And then you go into Bama with doubts. You're not feeling great. So the first one it does, it gives you confidence. The second one it does is it gives your backups real reps in a game. It gives Thomas Heiberger, Cooper Catalano real reps, because Tackett Curtis has had an injury history. Those are important things. It gives guys like Colin Coverly, potentially gives him real reps at guard. And we know the type of issues he had on the offensive line. Those could be massive reps for guys like Ryan Corey and Colin Coverly, Emmett Bork, Eugene Hilton. Those are really big reps for players on the second line to develop themselves and get better, so that when you need them later in the year, you can put them in and they faced real opponents in real games, right? And then I think the third thing is it keeps some of the reps off your starters. This season is going to be a bloodbath. We talked about it. Whether you feel a little worse about Michigan and a little better about Alabama, it doesn't matter. This season's going to be really physical. If you can give some of your starters who have played a lot of ball, who don't need those reps, a quarter off, this is a key time to do it. So that's kind of my three keys there. Let's get into a few of these comments, and then I'm going to tell you my 3 key players of the game. P says O'Neal's for real. Let's go. Smo says over under 2 touchdown passes. I think 2 is actually a good number. I think 2 isn't what I would take. Like if you had gone 1.5, I'd take the over. If you went 2.5, I'd take the under. So if you're going to make me go over under 2, I'm going to go over. I'm going to say it's 3 if you're going to make me go over under 2, but I think 2 is the number I would take if I could. Zach Ryan says a good mix of pass and run, test things out, figure out the offensive line, a good game to figure stuff out before our first legit test against Bama. I appreciate you, Zach. Yeah, it's a great comment. Like, it echoes some of what I said. This is a good opportunity to figure out what you want to do in the line, figure out what works with Daniel O'Neal before Alabama. At least it's not the Tyler Van Dyke situation where in the second quarter or the first quarter you're figuring out with a backup quarterback what works against Bama. You got a week to do a few things. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was last year. All right, we're going to get a second for our friends of the show. We're going to come back, The rest of your comments, we got Hooger in here. Hey, boys. We got Badger and Bournemouth in here. We have to be able to run the ball well this week. If we can't, that's really bad. 100% agree. I also got my 3 players, key players of the game. That's coming up next, including a bit of a surprise guy. Let's get first, friends of the show come back. We'll get into your comments, 3 key players of the game. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show. Excuse me. Quick second for our friends of the show over at Mazda. Just had to clear my throat there for a second. You can just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it. Like, really go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode also brought to you by our incredible friends over at DoorDash. I love DoorDash, right? And right now, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back. We're going to crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I already talked about Preston Zachman last week. I'm going to talk about Daniel O'Neal a little bit as a guy who delivered in a pretty big way, coming in before he thought he would and delivering a win in his first action in Camp Randall. We can talk about the defense playing great, but he also led a touchdown drive. He did a lot with his legs. For a guy who's still pretty young, still learning the offense, still new to this system and this college, I thought he did pretty well. He played without hesitation, and he definitely played without delay. And if you've been watching some of what he did last year, it's not really a fluke. Daniel O'Neal could be a bit of a guy this year. And just like Daniel O'Neal delivered for the Badgers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits ordered this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms to apply. Promo period through 11/18. Okay, now let me give you my 3 key players of the game. And then you let me know who your 3 key players, 1 key player, whoever it is. Who are your key players to this game? That the guys that you're going to be like locked in on, that you want to see. My first one is, I think it's obvious, it's Daniel O'Neal, right? It's got to be the quarterback. It's got to be the guy that is making his first start in Madison. He's going to have the entire week to have been in the game plan, getting the number 1 reps. This isn't a great opponent. This is really an opportunity for him to build some momentum going forward, but we got to see it. I think we saw flashes last week. We saw some things we liked. We saw some things we definitely didn't like. Can he take what he did last week and build on it? Which means running smartly, not taking those big hits, not throwing that across the field throw that he cannot throw. You can't make those type of decisions, but can he still keep that aggressiveness? We're going to find out this weekend, right? I think, to me, Daniel O'Neal is clearly one of the players of the game that I'm going to keep my eye on. The next one's Dylan Jones. So Badger and Bournemouth talked about the running game needs to be pretty good. I talked about I want to see us pass the ball. But that's still going to be predicated on us being successful in moving the chain between the tackles. I want to see a big Dylan Jones game. 100+ yards. That's been the expectation for him. The hype has been pretty high. This is a team he should be able to break a couple long runs against. And he ran hard last week. He really did. But I also thought there were a couple moments where maybe he was a little too quick to the hole. We talked about this in other shows. I think the vision can get a tick better. I think this is a big game for Dylan Jones. And then my other one's Riley Ballman. When you lose a Kevin Haywood and then you have the struggles of a Davis Heinzen, whether they move Riley Ballman to the left tackle spot, which we've talked about as a possibility, or they keep him at right tackle, he's got to be the rock on the offensive line right now. Because they can help on one side, right? They can shuffle pieces around. They can fix something out, but he's got to be the bastion. He's got to be the lighthouse that the quarterback looks to for safety right now. So I think he's got to, almost every game, be really, really good. He's got to stay healthy, which really, that's a kind of just nothing he can control, but he's got to be really good for this team, because the other side might be a bit of a work in progress all year, regardless of what they do. So those are my 3 kind of players of the game that I'm looking for. And then my key coach is Jeff Grimes, right? What is Grimes going to do with Daniel O'Neal? How is he going to kind of manipulate this offense to best fit what O'Neal does? What's he going to do from a run pass standpoint, right? Does he agree with my take that, hey, we need to throw the ball around a lot? Or is he just going to play a little more conservative, backup quarterback, some offensive line issues? Let's just run the ball. I don't know. This is a big week for Coach Grimes. All right, let's get your comments and your thoughts. Who are your key players of the game? Who do you want to see? What are your keys to the game? Zachary Ryan says, test blitz packages. Who cares if we win 28-0 or 50-0? A solid win is a win. Need confidence before Bama. Mark Benson says, great night, dominate. 0 points from our D. Base plays solidifying our offensive line. Yeah, play great D, solidify the offensive line. I agree with that. Steve Kneebone, I want to see Tretch get a lot of targets. Yeah, we're starting to get to the point where when is Tretch going to have that breakout Tretch moment? You know, I think he's still a player who struggles a little bit running routes, but we know he's good in open space. So they have to find ways to get him the ball. They have to, and they did it a little bit last week, right? They tried him on an end around, but they also got him a quick kind of receiver screen that he actually got a first down on. So more of that. I mean, maybe just double down on that, right? Let's get him, one of the playmakers on the offense, the ball in space more. And maybe you'll see that this weekend. We'll see. Yeah, good point from MVG. Giving reps to the backups helps with the buy-in. It keeps them engaged. And I'm telling you again, you're going to need them this year. With this schedule, you're going to need Cairo Skanes. You're going to need Grant Steck and Emmett Bork. You're going to need Colin Cubberly. You're going to need, maybe you might need Hunter Simmons. You might need Gideon Atuka. You might need Kyamberry Johnson, Dekel Crowdis. Well, these guys just, if you can get some of those guys meaningful reps, I think the experience is invaluable down the road. Zach says 3 key players, Daniel O'Neal, whoever's playing left tackle, and Curtis at linebacker. See what he can bring us. Yeah, Tackett Curtis is a good one, Zach. You know, I was watching back the All-22, and Christian Allegro flashes everywhere. I thought it was an okay Tackett Curtis game. He got a little shallow on his zone. I thought he gave up a pass reception there. He did get into the A-gap and make a nice stop on a running back. But I think we're still expecting more. Like, where is that downhill force that we saw in recruiting film that we talked about a little bit that the coaching staff has been really high on? Like, where is that? Because if that can show up and you pair that with Christian Allegro, this defense becomes a different level. But if it's just Christian Allegro paired next to a guy who isn't fully disruptive, just a guy, then the defense isn't quite the same and the ceiling probably drops a little bit. So I think Tackett Curtis is a good one. P says, I want to see Grimes scheme up Danny. I think we're going to see it. Well, how effective it'll be is going to be interesting, but we're definitely going to see it. Adam says, we need to see the offense rip off some long runs for touchdowns tomorrow. It's been too long. 100% agree. And even back to my original point, Adam, and thanks for jumping on the show, man. When I say throw the ball, open it up, I mean, like, let's get at least 20 to 25 throws. This is still a team that is going to have to run the ball. So absolutely run the ball, feed Dylan, feed Darion, and then off of that, take some aggressive play action shots, roll out the pocket, get the defense off balance, right? And I think you can do that with Daniel O'Neal. So that's what I want. I want still an aggressive game plan, even though this is an opponent that might not necessarily warrant it, because I think that's going to benefit the team going forward. And I think it's going to be good for Daniel O'Neal. But yes, they need to rip off some big runs. They absolutely need to. See if there's more comments in there. Definitely. Eli Davis says, get Tretch and Crowdis tomorrow. Zachary Ryan says, Carter Smith in the 4th. We need to see that. Have the crowd show love to him while we are up. I think just based on the depth chart and what they might need to do, I think if we get to a backup quarterback, Zach, it's going to be Hunter Simmons. Because if something happens right now to Daniel O'Neal, Hunter Simmons is going in there. And they're going to definitely, I think, relish the opportunity if they can to get him a couple reps, because he's now the number 2. He's no longer the 3. So best believe they're going to want him to be ready. So I hear you on Carter Smith. I still really like Carter Smith, but he's behind Hunter Simmons now. So I think Simmons would be the guy there. Neza says, need a touchdown by Vinny, Ballard, and Hilton. 3 guys that can actually get open. You might see it. I really think you might see it. I want to see Mason get involved too. I'm telling you, I think Mason, what we saw in practice hasn't gone away. I still think this coaching staff really likes him. They want to use him, but then it was just a situation where the starting quarterback went down and the offensive line was struggling, and they just never really got him going. But I think this could be a nice week for Mason as well. Hooger says, I think Zach means we're going to win big and put him in. I still think if they're up big, they're going to put Hunter Simmons in, though. I think that's my point. Even if I don't know if you're going to see Carter Smith almost regardless of the score. Maybe you do. Maybe they get up big, right? And in the 3rd quarter, it's Hunter Simmons, and then it's the 4th, it's Carter Smith. I don't know. But I think they're going to get Hunter Simmons some reps before. And I don't know if you get through a couple different quarterbacks in this game. All right, we're going to wrap it up there on Wisconsin. Appreciate y'all. Fun game tomorrow. As always, when you're done watching the game, come check out the reaction show, Locked On Badgers. Come join our Discord. And thank you. Thank you, as always, for tuning into the show and being part of this community on Wisconsin. And let's definitely talk tomorrow after the Badgers beat Middle Tennessee State.